Hello everyone, JH Medium here. Today we are in Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Many people only know Sarajevo from history textbooks, the city that endured the longest capital siege in modern European history. Bosnia and Herzegovina might not get as much travel hype as some of its Balkan Peninsula neighbors, but let me show you why it deserves a spot on your travel list. On this trip, of course, we'll learn about the city's heavy past. But there is so much more to Sarajevo's identity. From the epic sunsets at the Yellow Fortress, to the charming magic of Başakşehir, and the endless local food, it instantly became one of our favorite destinations. Even though we packed for a mild spring getaway, Sarajevo surprised us with a plot twist that turned this into our most unforgettable trip of the year. Join us as we spend 4 days exploring this criminally underrated European capital. Good afternoon from Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We just arrived in the city and then we checked the weather report, and apparently the next few days the weather will be completely horrible. So even though we're a little bit tired from traveling, we have to make the most of this sunshine. We're walking around the river area and behind me is the Latin Bridge. This bridge is one of the most important landmarks in Sarajevo and all of Europe. If you know a brief history of World War I, you'll know that it started with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of the Austria-Hungary Empire. On June 28, 1914, just north of the Latin Bridge, Gavrilo Princip shot the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. This single act started a chain reaction that eventually led to the First World War. Today, you can still see a plaque marking this site, as well as embossed footprints showcasing exactly where he stood.
现在看这条桥就是一个非常平静、非常普通的小桥。我想当时也许没有人能想象得到，就像一个投入河流的一个石子一样，泛起的涟漪震荡了整一个世界。
But while Sarajevo served as the catalyst for the First World War, it's not what this city will be remembered by, because only a couple decades ago, in the 1990s, Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina faced one of the darkest periods Europe has ever seen. Right now we made it to the center of Başakşehir, which is the old town area of Sarajevo. There's so many shops here, restaurants, but I don't think we're gonna stick here for too long because since the weather is good today, we have to go find a spot to watch the sunset. Our host recommended us to go to the Yellow Fortress, so that's where we're gonna go right now. And then maybe for dinner, we'll come back to this area and have something to eat. On the hike up to the Yellow Fortress, we are immediately reminded of the tragic history this city and country endured from 1992 to 1995. In just 4 years, over 100,000 people lost their lives during the Bosnian War. Many of those soldiers and civilian victims are buried right here in the Kovaci Cemetery. This dome structure you see is actually the tomb of Bosnia's former president, who requested to be laid to rest alongside his people. It's so hard to put into words the feeling of walking next to this mass cemetery. Well, on one hand, this is definitely one of the most beautiful landscapes you'll find in Sarajevo. But on the other hand, it's also a location that holds a lot of weight. It reminds us of the absolute horror we only read about in history books. But this is here, right in front of my eyes in real life.
我们在很多的地方有看过夕阳，在山上，在海边，在城市里，但是这是第一次我们在一座墓园旁边看日落。这是一种很复杂的心情，阳光照在身上很温暖，但是又觉得心里有很沉重的悲伤。这只是一个90年代发生的事情，所以会想到这些孩子很多都是跟我在同一个年代成长起来的。 但他们已经没有机会看到今天的夕阳了。这一片能看到这个城市最美的风景的地方，留给了这个国家最深刻的烙印。
This really is absolutely beautiful, the perfect welcoming to Bosnia and Herzegovina. The golden sunset was already very satisfying, but as the crowds began to clear, we decided to stay up here a bit longer, and now the sky is turning into this absolutely gorgeous shade of pink. Here at a high point of the city, you can hear the very unique soundscape of Sarajevo. Surrounding us, we can hear the call to prayer from the mosques, echoing one after the other. But in the distance, we can also hear the faint sound of the church bells ringing, birds chirping, and the gentle breeze blowing. As it gets darker, as the city starts to light up, it really seems like this whole hillside is filled with sparkling little stars. The only downside is that we thought this was going to be spring weather, but with snow forecasted in the next few days, I don't think we brought enough clothes. It's getting a little bit cold with the wind. I think we should start heading down. We made it down from the hill, and for dinner today we're going to have some cevapi, which is arguably the most famous dish here in Sarajevo. Our Airbnb host recommended this restaurant to us, and he said this is the best one. The presentation here is very simple. All you get are some onions and some bread. But I mean, it's supposed to be a cheap and fast meal. Presentation doesn't matter as long as it's delicious. We also got a pieskavica, which is the burger patty. Here we have to do the assembly ourselves. They serve the patty and the bread separately. Cevapi is the ultimate Balkan street food. We're gonna cut it open so you can actually see the meat. I promise it's in there. It's some rolled minced meat formed into the shape of a sausage and served inside a flatbread. It typically also comes with kaymak, which is a type of clotted cream. Really, really good. It's smoky, juicy. The onions and kaymak definitely help balance out the oiliness. I'm honestly not sure what is the correct way to eat cevapi. Looking at the locals around us, they seem to be eating it in many different methods. Some people are peeling off each small piece of bread and then eating the sausages separately. Some people are peeling the bread and then wrapping each individual piece of cevapi into like a smaller roll. And then some people are eating it just like me, as a giant sandwich. So I don't know what is the best method, but either way, it's delicious. And now we're gonna self-assemble the pieskavica. While this is not our first time having cevapi or pieskavica, here it's the most traditional type, it's the most basic, down-to-earth, no-thrills version, and I feel like that's the best version. It's not supposed to be enjoyed at a fancy restaurant, it needs to be like a street food stall.
这家切瓦皮太受欢迎了，就在短短的一个路口，它就有3家分店。
What a brilliant first evening here in Sarajevo, the sunset, the food. We arrived around 5 o'clock today, so we didn't get to explore much of the city. I can't wait to see what else the city has to offer in the next few days. Day 2 in Sarajevo, and this morning we start on Ferhadia, one of the major streets of the city. To understand a bit more about Sarajevo, we have to look at the Meeting of Cultures line. West of the line, we see a European street with Austro-Hungarian style architecture. It's the image of what most people might associate with a European city. This includes stunning pieces of architecture like the Sacred Heart Cathedral, built during the late 19th century. But as we look east of the line, the cityscape completely changes. Now we see an Ottoman-era old town, resembling more of what you might find in Turkey. In a single step, it looks like you crossed continents and time. Today, we're mainly going to explore the Ottoman side. We're back in the Old Town area before it starts raining because we didn't get to see much of it yesterday. This area is called Başakşehir and it's the old bazaar, old center of Sarajevo. The centerpiece of the old town is Sebi, which is an Ottoman-era wooden fountain.
哪里的鸽子最多，基本上就知道哪里是老城的中心了。
When the Ottoman Empire controlled this area, they left behind all these gorgeous buildings of the old town, but more importantly, they left behind their religion, Islam. The Ottoman-era Muslim converts of the region eventually became the modern-day Bosniaks, the largest ethnic group in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Right now we're inside the courtyard of the Gazi Huzrerbeg Mosque, which is one of the major mosques here in the old center of Sarajevo. Originally built in the 16th century, this mosque is one of, if not the most important Ottoman-era structure of the entire country, and a beacon of the Bosniaks' Muslim faith. But of course, Islam is not the only religion in the country. There are Croats or Hrvati who are mainly Catholic, and Serbs who are mainly Christian Orthodox. While Sarajevo itself is predominantly Bosniak Muslim, with the other communities spread across the country, we can still see their historical sacred religious sites in the old town. Because of its blend of cultures, some people even nickname Sarajevo the Jerusalem of Europe. This small alleyway here is called the Copperware Street, with many old copper workshops. While copper is not something we want to bring home, in the streets of Başakşehir we found our favorite souvenir. Here in Bosnia, we can immediately feel the stronger artistic atmosphere. In the Old Town area, there are so many artist workshops, and of course that also means there's so many beautiful postcards. We bought 4 already in 2 different workshops. Compared to the very boring and ugly postcards we found in the neighboring countries, these ones of Sarajevo are a real treat for us.
终于没有了丑陋的 PPT 式排版大风景照的明信片，我们有了一些更有个性的风格。我们已经完全在那里面挑花眼了，所以千挑万选还是选了几张很满意的。
For lunch today, we're gonna have some burek, which is sort of like a savory pastry with meat filling on the inside. Usually burek in Bosnia is only with the meat filling. In the neighboring countries, they also have this type of dish with other fillings, for example, spinach, cheese, etc. But in Bosnia, they don't call that burek anymore. So here you gotta try the one with the meat. And it comes with some sauce, probably some yogurt sauce, I guess. Here the burek is not sold by portion size, it's sold by kilogram. I think we each got 300 grams. Okay, time to dig in. Gonna try a piece without the sauce first. Ooh, I really like that. The outer skin is flaky, crispy, but the inside is still soft. And yes, it's a very salty dish, so now I'm gonna try it with the sauce. Yeah, that's just a yogurt sauce, but it's definitely 100% better with the sauce. It adds a bit of freshness to help balance out the oiliness of the pastry.
这个酥皮的味道呢，其实我觉得很像我们一个很熟悉的食物——葱油饼，当然是没有葱版本的。而且它跟葱油饼的制作方法也极其的相似，都是通过这种面团卷制盘绕的方式，只不过 burek 这种馅饼里面加了肉。
This restaurant is called Sach, just on the street in the alleyway next to a mosque. When you find a burek store, you gotta find a store that only serves burek. Don't find a store that serves like chavapi and burek. You gotta find the specialty ones. After lunch, the wind is really starting to pick up. We're back at the riverside, and we're at one of the spots on the postcard that we just bought. This river in front of us is called the Miatska. Although it's quite shallow and small, the numerous bridges crossing it and the townhouses rising up the hill make this view very charming. Right next to us, we can also see the absolutely stunning Vijećnica, Sarajevo City Hall, built during the Austro-Hungarian era. When we were eating lunch, there was still plenty of blue sky, but now it's all gone. I can feel it starting to drizzle already. I think we need to go find some shelter and maybe call it a day. Since the weather today is not that great, it's a good time to go do some indoor activities. And here in Sarajevo, there are so many museums that you can check out. When visiting Sarajevo, it's impossible to avoid the topic of the Bosnian War. As heartbreaking as it is, learning about this chapter of its history feels like an essential part of being here. Today we'll visit two museums that document this period from very different perspectives. Following the collapse of Yugoslavia, ethnic tensions deepened even more. And on April 5th, 1992, the 4-year-long siege of Sarajevo began. As I'm just a traveler, I think I'll leave the history lesson to more qualified people. But this museum really shows you what life in Sarajevo was like during that time. After just a few minutes inside this museum, the atmosphere already feels suffocating and claustrophobic. This siege lasted nearly 4 years. It pains me even thinking about what the residents of the city endured during that time. There are many objects here that speak of the cold, the hunger, and the darkness. Perhaps the question people ask the most is simply, why? Another imagery left over from the war are these Sarajevo roses. These patterns are created by bombshells landing on the concrete, which dug very unique shapes on the ground. After the war, these craters were filled in with red paint, turning them into blood red roses. A crater was only converted into a rose if more than 3 civilians lost their lives at that spot. There are over 100 of these throughout the city. Even on the modern, repaved streets of Sarajevo, these roses live on as a reminder and a memorial. While the next museum covers the same time period, it approaches the history from an entirely different point of view. So right now we're going to go check out the War Childhood Museum. When you enter the museum, you do not see any intense imagery. Instead, the first room is simply an interactive experience that lets you look back on your own childhood. Pick a favorite childhood activity. When I was a kid, I really liked board games, card games, all sorts of games. I mean, even right now as an adult, I like them as well.
Which activities remind you of your favorite childhood moments? So I think I will pick outdoors, of course. Okay, there we go.
Even though they seem like very simple questions, they do help us reminisce about our own childhood, which honestly feels like such a long time ago already. What was your childhood dream job? Mine definitely changed like a million times. What sounds remind you of your childhood? These questions certainly bring back memories from a very important time of our lives.
请分享一个关于你童年最快乐的回忆。上面写的其实都是一些很简单、很纯粹、很天真的时刻，还有可能是关于某一个夏天，关于跟家人在一起的时刻。也许当时觉得只是寻常，但是后面回忆起来却觉得非常美好。
This first room really sets the tone for the entire museum. Walking into the main exhibition hall, we now see the childhood memory of Bosnia residents who grew up during the siege and the war. The museum itself is actually very small, it's just one room. And at first glance, it seems like these are just ordinary objects on display. But actually, every single one of these objects have strong sentimental value towards their owners. These are all ordinary objects from people who grew up during the Bosnian War, but it also shows objects from more recent events like Gaza and Ukraine. A handmade birthday gift from a friend. A father's razor. A favorite childhood book. Despite the underlying sadness, many of these objects were beacons of light that helped these children get through that dark period of time. To be honest, when I visit museums, I usually lack the patience to read any text, but here I found myself reading every single word. Even though this is a museum about war, it's not using graphic imagery to get its message across. It's using stories that you can actually connect with. Looking at each one of these descriptions, it's sort of like listening to a story from a friend. They're talking about stories on a smaller scale, more personal, intimate stories. Childhood is something that we all experienced, except for the people here, their childhood was greatly impacted by tragedy.
"就在这个年代，还有很多的小孩同样依然还在面临着这种情况。衷心的希望这个世界上不要有更多的孩子再会面临战争所带来的阴影，希望他们的童年无忧无虑，甚至无忧无虑真的是一句非常非常奢侈的祝福，而和平也真的是非常非常难得的一件事情。
It's hard to not feel sad thinking about what this country has been through. But during our time in Sarajevo, a historical moment united the country in happiness. Bosnia and Herzegovina defeated Italy to qualify for the Football World Cup. Even though we missed the actual street celebrations, we could definitely feel the sense of pride and joy among the locals we met. On this very gloomy and cold day, of course, we gotta come and have some hot food. Some hot food that's not cevapi. We've been having so much cevapi recently that I didn't even want to film everything we ate. But this time, we got some Bosnian goulash, which is something I've never had before, and also some meatballs. Visually speaking, the Bosnian goulash is very different from the Hungarian goulash that we're used to. The Bosnian goulash is like a thicker sauce-based stew that goes with either pasta, potatoes, but this time we got ours with rice. It already smells really good, it looks very good. I can't wait to dig in. The sauce is not overly salty. The beef, wow, it completely dissolves in your mouth for the lack of a better explanation. It's so tender. I wonder how long they cooked this for. And as an Asian person, I'm so glad to be eating rice again. I feel like I haven't had rice for such a long time here in Europe. This plate really shows that goulash is a very different dish depending on what country you go to. Now I'm gonna try some of these meatballs. The meatballs look like it's sitting inside this tomato-based sauce, and it comes with some mashed potatoes. There's so many different layers of spices inside that meatball. It's juicy on the inside, not overly salty, and the sauce is really good as well. The tomato sauce is very rich. It doesn't taste like pasta sauce. I think it will go super well with some bread. Everything goes so well with that tomato sauce. Even though the mashed potatoes themselves are not the smoothest or creamiest, it's so good with that sauce. Honestly, this might be one of my favorite meals that we had, not just in Bosnia, but in the whole Balkan trip. When it comes to Sarajevo, yes, cevapi is the most famous dish in the country, but don't skip out on the goulash. If our trip to Sarajevo ended now, I would already be completely satisfied with everything we experienced. But it's about to get even better. The city had one more surprise. As we returned to the streets of Sarajevo, it started snowing. Good morning from Sarajevo. I said in the previous day that the weather forecast showed snow. I thought it might just be like a little bit of snow, but no.
还记得那张明信片吗？市政厅门口的这座小桥，雪后已经是另一个世界了。
Sarajevo completely transformed in the snow. To get a better view of the city covered in this gorgeous blanket of white, we're gonna head back to the Yellow Fortress. But hiking up now is not as easy as the first time. Take a look at how thick this untouched snow is on the table. You can see how much it actually snowed. We couldn't really tell when we were on the street level in the city. But up here, when there's few people, you can really see that this is a snowstorm.
作为一个南方人，虽然我已经度过了20多个春夏秋冬，但是总共看过雪的时间累计应该不超过1个月。而且我看过很多也都是那种已经下好的完成式的雪，这是第一次我觉得我见识到了一个真正的下雪天。
This is absolutely insane. Can you imagine that a few days ago we came up to the Yellow Fortress to watch the sunset? This is supposed to be the beginning of spring. We really shouldn't underestimate Sarajevo because, I mean, it did hold the Winter Olympics before. This was not planned at all in our trip. We should be wearing some puffy jackets, not this very thin coat. I am freezing up here, but the scenery is just spectacular.
“这是什么本地人的雷霆下山方法？好强！”
Earlier this year when we went hiking in the snow in Jeju, we brought some ice spikes for our shoes, so it was actually very easy. I did not think we needed that today. My goodness, going downhill is so challenging. So much concentration required. Later in the afternoon, we're gonna take the cable car up to Trebević. Believe me, we saved the best activity for last, so definitely keep watching. But right now, we need to get out of the cold for a while. So back in Başakşehir, we're gonna have some dessert. We're here to eat some baklava. We got 2 different types. Even though baklava is a famous dish mainly from Turkey, they also have it here in Bosnia. Bosnian baklava is slightly different from the ones you will find in Istanbul. The most famous flavor here is made from walnuts. So of course we got the walnut flavor, and we also got a pistachio flavor, more similar to the ones you'll find in Turkey. First, let's try the walnut baklava. Bosnian baklava is very syrupy. It has this refreshing, light, lemony flavor. Because of all the syrup, even with all the walnuts, it's not a crunchy baklava. It's juicier and softer than the Turkish counterpart. Next up, the pistachio baklava. Even though this one uses pistachio like Turkish baklava, it tastes completely different. The flavor is distinctly Bosnian. With the syrup, the texture is very similar to the walnut one we just had, but the pistachio version definitely has a richer flavor. As an East Asian, we prefer our desserts not too sweet. So right now, late in the afternoon, when I don't really want to have a coffee, the sweetness level is perfect. Now it's time for my most anticipated activity of the trip, heading up to Trebovich to see the mountain and the old bobsleigh track. The cable car ticket is 20 marks per person one way. What concerns me a little is that we cannot even see the mountain right now. But if it hosted the Winter Olympics, it means that area should be accessible in the snow, right? Well, let's find out.
好安静的一个冰雪覆盖的世界，感觉就像在水晶球里面一样。
Ooh, I think we entered the cloud level already. Here it's all foggy, all cloudy, misty. I'm not sure what the right term is. Now we can barely see anything around us. We only bought a one-way ticket up. We were supposed to walk back down. Judging by how long this cable car ride is, maybe we made a bad decision. Apparently it's only supposed to be a 40-minute walk down, so hopefully you'll be fine. You see that cable car? It literally came out of nowhere. What is this place? I mean, I've seen snow before. I lived in winter cities, New York, Beijing, but I've never seen a snowstorm like this before. I mean, we are high up in the mountains, so there is definitely more snow here than in the city, but this is pretty incredible. It's like I'm in a completely different planet.
“我觉得我已经到了世界的尽头了，眼睛都已经开始被白的出现幻觉了。”
This is supposed to be a frame where you can see Sarajevo in the background. Well, not today. we've arrived at the most iconic part of this entire mountain, the old bobsled track from the 1984 Winter Olympic Games. When looking back at Sarajevo's history, a large part of it is marked by conflict and tragedy. But the 1984 Winter Olympic Games stands out as an event that unified the region in pride and celebration. Even today, you can still see shops across the city selling the Olympic mascot. However, less than a decade after hosting an event built on peace and friendship, the war broke out. The bobsleigh track we see right here became a military stronghold, and many other Olympic facilities were heavily damaged or destroyed. It's so stunning right now, and the entire track is covered in snow. Obviously, this bobsleigh track is no longer in use. There's lots of graffiti on there, as you can see. Right now, it's just a relic of the past. When it's not snowing, it's actually possible to walk on the bobsleigh track itself. But obviously right now it's completely covered. Nobody has carved a path out yet, so I think we have to stick on the main road. From a symbol of friendship to a fortress of hostility and hatred, and finally to the ruins we see here today. This track represents far more than meets the eye. The signing of the Dayton Agreement in 1995 ended the Bosnian War and brought back relative peace. But even today, an invisible line divides this mountain and country into its two semi-autonomous entities. We are currently standing in the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, while the other side belongs to the Republika Srpska. Okay, I think we reached the very end of the bobsleigh track. Now the plan is to head down the mountain before it gets dark. We can make it. Okay, we just felt a sign of hope because we just saw two hikers hiking up the hill while we were going down. That must be so much tougher, but at least it means it's possible to go down on this road.
能看出来这其实是一条公路吗？如果不是旁边的栏杆。
Along this path, you'll also see many abandoned buildings. I'm not quite sure what they're for, but just like the bobsleigh track, they're all completely covered in graffiti right now. It looks like we made it back to the path of the cable car. Hopefully we're nearly at the city. Will anyone see us from the cable car? I doubt it. Guess what? I think we reached civilization again. We're finally at an area where there are houses that people actually live in. These houses are definitely not abandoned. That means we're nearly in the city. I think the main problem with this trip today is not that it's cold or anything. In fact, it's not that cold. Honestly, grip is the main issue. Walking on the half-melted ice, it's ultra slippery. Here on the road where everything is melted already, there's finally enough grip. And when there's all snow, there's also enough grip. It's just that transition point in the middle that's very difficult. If you really want to come during the winter and see the beautiful snow, either take the cable car up and down, return ticket, or make sure you have the right hiking equipment. With that being said, I still do not regret coming in the winter, because I got to witness the most gorgeous snowscape I've ever seen. Our trip to Sarajevo has been absolutely unforgettable. While this city's past is filled with darkness, as a traveler today, the Sarajevo we experienced is nothing but beauty and light. I see a city of resilience, with warm locals, delicious food, and breathtaking scenery. In the summer, it might be completely different from what we experience now, but no matter the season, I cannot recommend Sarajevo enough. It is truly a gem of Europe.